rough. Okay, so yesterday we went over some background where the complex plane comes from. Today we're going to go over some actual math with it that you'll need to do for your homework. So we'll start with some examples of the complex plane. Now, this is a little bit different. Maddie, yesterday, you were saying how this y-axis was just like a y-axis. And you know what? Honestly, like 9 times out of 10, you'll probably be okay thinking that. But I want you to be aware of a subtle difference. X and y, two different numbers. They got nothing to do with each other, really, when you have that. This I, which is the square root of -1, one I right here is the square root of this -1 right here on this axis. And we talked yesterday about why, if you take the square root of this -1, I has to be 90 degrees off of the number line. That's what we did yesterday. So there is a direct relationship between the numbers here, the real numbers, and the complex numbers on this axis. There's not a similar relationship between x and y. Does that make sense? It's like this isn't really two-dimensional. It's almost like it's 1.5 dimensional. Because it's not like a bunch of x's and a bunch of y's. It's a bunch of x's and the square roots of the negative x's.
So aren't they all like kind of related?
Yeah,
Okay.
in ways that the x and y aren't directly related. And that's why what we're graph with this, when we're only going to graph points on the complex plane because we're not going to, functions on the complex plane are too hard. But just graphs on the complex plane, for example.
So we're doing graph.
Yep, but just points.
Is there a way to find out what the points are? Or are they given?
Yep, here you go. You ready? If I say graph 4 plus 2i, this is kind of like an xy coordinate. It's kind of like an xy coordinate, but not completely. So it doesn't have the comma. You have to write it this way. You can't write it as 4, 2, but you do have to graph it in the same way. So this means let's go 1, 2, 3, 4 in the real direction, and up 2 in the complex direction. And this is the single complex number 4 plus 2i. This isn't two numbers separated by a comma. This is one number. It's got a real part and a non-real part.
Wait, is that a decimal? 0.4.
No, this is the dot.
What's the point?
This is the point, and this is the label for the point.
Leave it in parentheses.
No, because that's not how you do it. See, if you put it in parentheses and you put a comma, then you're saying you've got x's and y's. So this is just the complex number with the real part and the non-real part. No, really, you're not supposed to put parentheses around it.
And if I do?
Here. Would it help if?
So don't write it in a different color.
No.
Yes.
How about if I write it up there?
No.
Okay, well, guys, we're going to have to agree on something. We'll get
Yes,
back.
that's fine.
All right. Okay. Let me do another example now. If I say -3 plus I.
Wait.
Yeah.
So why do you need the dot here?
This dot tells me where this number actually is. This number actually is 4 over on the real axis and 2 up on the complex axis.
So that's just like a.
It's like xy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's, like I said, you can treat it like xy, and
So I can even put an X above it and a Y above it.
no, you can't do that because it's not. Because these things have, these are x plus the square roots of the negative x's.
Okay, but anything that has an I with it goes on the.
Goes up and down, yeah.
Okay, and anything that doesn't,
Is the real part.
it's that. Okay.
Yep. And so you can treat it like xy, but you can't write it that way. And I'll be brutally honest, in Algebra 2,
You can write it as like 2 points, right? That's
Nope.
one full thing.
yep, because it's one full number, it's one complex number with 2 parts. It's annoying, but I know there are reasons for this, and I'll be brutally honest, we're not going to get to all the reasons for this in this class. You go into pre-calculus, you take similar math in college, to spend a little more time on that, but just to get you through, get you some practice, so we can talk about some harder things. You go out here to for this one, -3 plus I. You go out -3 in the real direction, negative real direction, and then you go up 1, and this is where the single number, -3 plus I, is located on the complex plane.
And then if it was -3 minus I, you just go down 1?
You're down here. So plotting points isn't any more difficult than the xy. It's just kids get confused because it looks a lot like the XY notation, but we're not gonna let you write it like X and not Y. Lindsay had a question.
So I equals positive 1 too, right?
This is more like positive 1 times I,
Okay.
is the way to think of it. So like this point up here, if I wanted to label it on the axis, I would say that's 2I. I would say down here, that's negative I.
Okay.
You have to add the little dot.
You mean like here?
Yeah.
Here, yeah, you gotta tell me somehow the point is there, that you know where the point is exactly.
Wait, what do you mean? No, I meant, do you have to draw?
Oh, these dotted lines?
Yeah.
No, I'm just doing that for clarity.
Okay.
You don't have to.
Can you do one more?
Yeah, one more. So let's do an example. Let's say I ask where 5 minus 2I is. Okay? So, yeah, in your head, you can think of this as 5 comma negative 2. It's not really what's going on, and I don't like encouraging that, but you would go out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the real axis, and down 2 on the complex axis. You don't have to draw these dotted lines, but I like to keep track of where I am. And this is the single complex number 5 minus 2I times 2 minus I. Here's where we have to FOIL. Okay? So first, I'm getting 5 times 2. Fairly straightforward. That's 10, right? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes.
Okay, good. Let me know if I'm going too fast. Outer, I'm getting 5 times negative I minus 5I.
Inner would be 6I, right?
Very good. Positive 6I, yes.
And last would be 4I. No.
Multiplying.
What? 3I.
Squared.
Minus
Minus.
positive times negative 3I squared. Okay, so we have 2 things we have to do now. We have to combine the like terms, and we're not allowed to leave I squared sitting there. So my final answer should look something like 10 minus 5 plus 6, it gives me plus 1I left. And then minus 3, my I squared becomes negative 1. Minus 3 times negative 1, that's going to get me plus 3. So my final answer is 13 plus I.
That was good.
Any questions on that one? All right, we'll save division till Monday.
That was a great time.
And